Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Bill Roach. This is another episode of Timeless Dialogues, and today we're going to do a very short episode on what's the first apologetics book you should read. Now, I assume that if you're clicking on this, you're somebody who's interested in apologetics, you may be, aware of the general field in apologetics, and you're turning in here so that you can find a few resources to help you in that. But the real big question is, where do you start? And one of the issues that we run into is that it doesn't matter if it's apologetics or biblical studies or just any topic in life. There are so many books out there that it's so difficult to know where to begin. So what's a good resource that we can go to in order to facilitate a basic rudimentary understanding of the key issues and the pertinent topics of any discipline, but in particular on this one for Christian apologetics. Now, what I want to do is that I briefly want to talk about what are some of the key issues in apologetics. That way we'll know what's the best book that addresses those key issues. So if you turned into this, you're going to have to wait to the very end in order to see this answer for what is the best or the first book you should read in Christian apologetics. But it's not going to take very long, so stick with me. So a few things that people are going to look at is there a thing such as truth? Can two contradictory things be true at the same time and in the same sense? Or what about, truth as it relates to religion? Maybe all religions could be equally true. Or is it true that only one religion out of all of the religions could be true? You see what I mean? These are some of the key questions that people ask, and you need to find a book that's going to be able to deal with them. Or there are other things that people are going to look at. How do I know that God exists? In particular, how do I know that the God of the Bible exists? How do I know that it's not, this idea that maybe the tree is God or the dog is God or I am God or something like that? And what would that even be called? Which, by the way, that's known as pantheism. All is God and God is all in that sense. But what's the difference? We claim that Christians believe in this idea of creation. So is there a distinction between the creation and the creator? And in addition to it, what about these concepts of, people talking about miracles? People say miracles happen all the time in their day-to-day life, but what's the difference between that and these miracles in the Bible? What difference does it make that, this guy was able to do miracles and this guy wasn't? What difference does it make if Jesus can do a miracle versus Muhammad can do a miracle? Does that validate religion in some way, shape, or form? Or do miracles prove that one religion is true and maybe all the others are false? Other things that people are going to ask and they're going to look at over and over and over again is, well, how do I know that the Bible is true? And by that, how do I know they wrote down what actually occurred? And how do I know that what they actually wrote down is what we have today? One's known as, this issue of the transmission of the text. The other is dealing with the issue of whether or not they were credible people and actually put the truth into the text. So you see what I mean, that there are a variety of questions that people ask. Other things people are going to look at is, does the Bible give us a true picture of who Jesus was? Is it just generally reliable? Did Jesus actually make real claims about himself? Were they, real in the sense that he said them and they recorded them? And then what are those kinds of claims? Did Jesus claim to be God? Did Jesus claim to be the Son of God? Did Jesus claim to be, an individual who was sinless? Did he actually live a sinless life? Did he claim that he was going to die and rise again 3 days later? These types of things. What did Jesus actually claim about himself? And then, did he do anything to prove those claims? Was there anything specific about the life of Jesus that makes his claims to those kinds of things different than the claims of other religious leaders that, everybody thinks their religion's true? Well, Jesus would have thought his religion was true. Well, was it or was it not? Other things that people are going to look at was, did Jesus actually die on a cross? Because, there are certain people that don't think that. Muslims don't think that. Did Jesus, not only did he die, but maybe he died on a stake and not on an actual cross. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that. Did Jesus actually rise from the dead, or was it just a mere appearance? Was it, something that was just a group hallucination? And you see the types of things people are asking here. Now, just a couple more. What was Jesus's view on the Bible? And does that make any difference for us today? Did Jesus view the Bible as the inspired, infallible, inerrant word of God, or did he just believe those things because, that's kind of what the people at that time believed, and he's just going on to, get along, to go on, and all these different kinds of concepts there. So that said, this brings me to the book that I want to recommend. I think the best book that you should read in order to get into Christian apologetics that's going to answer all those different types of questions is this book, titled I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Drs. Norman Geisler and Frank Turek. And what they're going to do in this book is they're going to build a case from nothing to this idea that it is true that the Bible is the word of God and anything opposed to it is false. And the way that they do it is that they go through what are known as the 12 points to prove Christianity is true. They're going to look at this idea that truth about reality is knowable. So it's going to deal with all those issues of postmodernism, and it's going to deal with all these people who say you can't know truth, or that, we only have a partial understanding of truth. My point is, the first thing that they're going to deal with is this idea that truth about reality is knowable. The second is that the opposites cannot both be true at the same time. So the opposite of what is true cannot be both true and false at the same time in the same sense. Either one is true and the other is false, but they both can't be true at the same time in the same sense. You see the point here? Now, then they're going to start looking at specific truth claims. They're going to say, it is true that a theistic God exists. And if God exists, then miracles are possible. Just think about this. If a theistic God exists, then that rules out all of the opposing non-theistic options. And if God exists, then miracles don't have to happen, but they are possible. And it's our job to figure out what the point of a miracle would be. So the fifth thing that they're going to look at is that miracles performed in connection with a truth claim are acts of God to confirm the truth of God through a messenger of God. In other words, if a guy claims that he is sent from God and he does a miracle and he makes truth claims related to it, the miracle is going to be the difference that it makes in order to make the distinction between a true and false religion. Now, the next thing that they're going to look at is that, is the Bible that we have, the New Testament in particular, is it historically reliable? And the reason that that's important is that if it's a historically reliable book, then if Jesus said it, then Jesus said it. If Jesus did something, then Jesus did something. If it says Jesus went somewhere, he actually went there. So the point is that as witnessed in the New Testament, Jesus claimed to be God. So if Jesus said it and the actions there that are recorded are historically reliable, then again, that's one of those kind of truth claims that we can investigate there. Then it would mean Jesus at least claimed to be God. But it goes even further than that. They're going to look at this next point that Jesus' claim to divinity was proven by miracles, especially the miracle of the resurrection. In other words, if a theistic God exists and miracles are possible and miracles are to confirm a message and or messenger from God, and we know that it's true that the New Testament's a historically reliable book, and in that book, Jesus claimed to be God and he proved it by his resurrection, then that miracle is validating Jesus as a true messenger from God. The claims that Jesus made are actually true because the resurrection is a miracle that validates that truth claim. Therefore, we can say Jesus is God. And in addition to that, because Jesus is God, whatever Jesus affirmed is true is true. So all these things that Jesus affirmed is true in the Old Testament have to be true. Why? Because Jesus is God, can only affirm that which is true if it's actually true. But if the opposite of what is true is false, then all the critics who claim all those things in the Old Testament and other things, well, they would have to be false in that sense. And there's a lot of things that we can look at, but one other thing that they look at is that this idea that Jesus affirmed the Bible to be the Word of God. Therefore, it is true that the Bible is the Word of God, and whatever is opposed to any biblical truth is false. Now, one of the things that you're going to see there is that that's a lot of material. There's a lot of things, and you may have a lot of questions. If that's you and you want to know more about this, I would recommend you get I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, because it's going to go through and answer all of the major questions that people are asking as it relates to the field of apologetics. It's really your one-stop shop for all of your apologetics needs and necessities. And that's a corny joke, but it truly is. Now, one thing that people are going to say is, there are other books that deal with this and there are other books that have more. I would agree. And what you need to do is you need to see this as, again, this is the first book you should read. And I think it's a very good book, and that's why I'm recommending it. But let's just say you have more questions about any of the 12 points that they lay out. Well, what you're going to find is that, well, they cited their works. You can go read the other books that they're pointing to. You can go read more advanced apologetics books, because if you want to go further, this book's not only going to get you into the field of apologetics, but it's going to point you in the right direction to find even more resources to equip you to defend the historic Christian faith and to evangelize the lost in this day and age. So again, thank you. Quick video today. We appreciate you. Like and subscribe.